Welcome! Today we're going to be discussing every single specific mention of a date in Taylor Swift's discography and also the mentions of months or particular seasons. And let me be clear here, I made this little chart down below that you see for a specific reason. It's because Taylor uses the mention of dates, seasons, months for two specific purposes. Either it's actually referencing a relationship that happened during that date or something else specific that happened during that date, or she's just using it for the vibe to convey a certain emotion, to aid her in her songwriting. So today we're going to be sorting these songs into two categories. Also, before we get into this video, I want to quickly say, as usual, that these are just theories. These are also mostly not my theories. They have been sourced from Reddit, and I'll try to give as much credit as possible in the description below. And yeah, let's get started. We're going to start off with the general winter season, and as you may guess, winter, both in Taylor Swift's writing and in the way that many other people use it as a metaphor, is generally represented as the cold season. It gives like isolation vibes and sad vibes. And so the first song we have is Evermore. And actually, I picked Evermore as the first song because it doesn't only have a mention of winter, it mentions both the November and December winter months as well as July. It's got a lot of date mentions in here. But first of all, let's agree on one thing. The dates being used in the song, what are they being used for? They're most definitely being used for a vibe. What vibe? The same vibe of isolation, bad vibes that come along with winter. And if we take a closer look at the lyrics, this is just, I think, a really, really interesting song to analyze lyrically. You can skip ahead to the dates that talk about actual relationships if you want, but I'm just going to analyze this real quick. First off, she says, "Green November, I've been down since July." And why does she do this? Well, been down since July, I think, kind of stands out as the end of summer, and a lot of people mention the phenomenon of like summer depression and stuff like that, and I think here she might be referencing the summertime sadness that's been extended to November. Like it's no longer just a brief period of sadness, now it's a long period of sadness. And next she says, "Motion capture put me in a bad light," which I think essentially means that motion capture is like a still image of something moving, and I think this is talking about a singular moment in her life or in a made-up character's life, we don't know, that put the narrator in a bad light, essentially putting them in a really bad mood, like making them depressed, and this was likely a single instance because she says motion capture. She also says that she keeps writing letters addressed to the fire, which I think very obviously means that these thoughts and these emotions never really make it outside of her mind. She kind of just like internalizes all of them. Next, she says that she's staring out an open window, catching her death. And I couldn't make sense of this for a while, but I think this is just when you open a window in the winter and you're afraid you're going to catch a cold. I think it's a play on that, but instead she's just catching her death, and she's essentially letting all these emotions in through an open window and this cold through an open window and letting it take her away. That's my interpretation of it. And then she says, "Hey, December," which is just repeating the first line, except we know that another month has passed and this depression is still continuing. And the theme of the depression, she says, "I rewind the tape, but all it does is pause. On the very moment all was lost," essentially confirming the fact that this song is really talking about a single instance that kind of shifted her mindset, and she keeps just rewinding it and trying to see what went wrong. And finally, she said, whether be the frost or the violence of the dog days. For me, I personally didn't know that dog days actually just meant like the hottest days of the year. I had to look it up, but now I know. She says, whether it be winter or summer, I'm on waves out being tossed, essentially. Yeah, she's in this state of mind. That's all I have to say for this song. I thought we'd just analyze it since it's the first one, and it's got all of these mentions of dates in here. Next up, what do we have? We have Christmas Tree Farm, which is an interesting one. Is the language here, the wintry language, being used as a vibe? I think also, yes, it's being used as a vibe. What vibe? I think it's something very oddly specific. I don't think it's just referencing that the cold of winter is bad, although it does do that. She says, "My winter nights are taken up by static, stress, and holiday shopping traffic." Essentially, she's describing this bad part of winter. But then she says, "Just like magic in my heart is a Christmas tree farm where people would come to dance under sparkling lights," essentially referencing like her like magical Christmas memories. And now like Christmas and winter is regarded as a good thing. And I think it's just being used kind of like for contrast here. Next up is Fresh out the slammer from the Tortured Poets Department, where she says, another summer taking cover, rolling thunder, he don't understand me. Now, if you've watched my channel, you'll know all about this song, but we're gonna see, is this a vibe? I personally, like a lot of people, don't think this is a vibe. I think this is about a relationship. It is most definitely about Joe Alwyn. We can go back to the lyrics, and she says, now pretty baby, I'm running back home to you, fresh out the slammer, I know who my first call will be too. This is very widely regarded to be her referencing being out of the jail, out of the relationship with Joe Alwyn, and like reconnecting with Maddie Healy right after that relationship. But here in the lyrics, she says, another summer taking cover, he don't understand me. I think that's referencing her final summer with Joe, and she also says, splintered back in winter, bitter, he was with her in dreams. I do think this actually kind of happened in these seasons, but this is also, I'll give it the credit, these seasons here are also being used kind of as a vibe. In the summer, she's taking cover because he doesn't understand her, and splintered in winter kind of gives these like cold, isolated vibes once again. But I do think this is also referring to a specific situation. Next up, we have All Too Well, where Taylor says, I walked through the door with you, the air was cold, implying that it is kind of the winter season. She also says, check the pulse and come back swearing it's the same after 3 months in the grave, which these 3 months are like it's a very specific thing to say. And as the Swiftie fan base knows, this song is about Jake Gyllenhaal, who Taylor dated from October to December of 2010, which also happens to be the kind of autumn-winter season. And she says, I walked through the door with you, the air was cold. That, first of all, it's once again, she kind of incorporates it into being about the vibe, because she says after this line, but something about it felt like home somehow, even though the air was cold. But they also literally dated in the season, and after 3 months in the grave is referencing kind of the period after their relationship where she still felt like the relationship wasn't dead and gone and buried. She still feels its pulse. Next up, we have Paper Rings. This one is difficult, okay? In the winter in the icy outdoor pool, when you jumped in first, I went in too. Is this being used for the vibes? Perhaps. I think it could go both ways. I guess like a lot of these songs have gone, but this one in particular, like what if she was using it for the vibe, what would be the purpose of using this specific theme here? I think the purpose would be using this icy pool as a metaphor for her jumping in with him, even though it's unpleasant, aka her being with him even in the most unpleasant of situations. What kind of strikes me is like a winter outdoor pool is a very specific thing, which maybe it actually happened, but we have no way of knowing. So for now, I'm going to say that this is most likely more of a vibe. Now, going into December, wow, there are a lot of these. Taylor really likes winter in her songwriting. She really likes it. I just thought I'd mention Evermore again because it mentions December. Moving on. Out of the Woods, looking at it now, last December we were built to fall apart, then fall back together. We all know this isn't being used for the vibes. This isn't being used for the vibes at all. This is about her relationship with Harry Styles, who she happened to date and I think broke up with like very soon, like December to January-ish. And if we look at the lyrics, there's a lot of evidence that points to this. Last December, Taylor and Harry dated late 2012 to early 2013, which you guessed it, includes December. She also says we were built to fall apart and then fall back together, which kind of fits both the reports of the press about their relationship. It fits Style, which is a song that's kind of like almost confirmed to be about him because it's literally named Style, and the kind of narrative in that where she says they kept kind of being on and off again if you look at the lyrics. And it also matches some 1D songs that I won't get into here, but essentially some of them also detail this on and off relationship. Could be about her, could not be about her, but anyway, moving on. December to January-ish was also clearly unstable for them because here in a news headline, Taylor reportedly left their romantic holiday alone after a row, and the press is probably exaggerating, but point is something went south, and this was posted on January 7th, and there are a lot of articles like that, so I'm just going to leave that there. Finally, and I didn't know this is a quote from Rolling Stone about this song from Taylor. She says it was inspired by a snowmobile ride with an ex who lost control and wrecked it so badly she saw her life flash before her eyes. And this, of course, started up many rumors, and there's a lot of newsletters being like, she went on a snowmobile ride with Harry Styles. I don't think that was actually actually confirmed, but what I do know was confirmed is that Taylor and Harry did actually go on a ski vacation together, and honestly, that's like all the evidence I need, really. And finally, I also didn't know this. She says 2 paper airplanes flying, and I thought this was kind of about both their like status as songwriters and they keep going up and their fame keeps getting bigger. I thought it was a reference to that, but I honestly think, now that I've seen this photo, that it might just be about the matching necklaces they had, because they did. They had matching paper airplane necklaces, and that's all I have to say about this song. I think it's pretty clear that what December is referencing here. Next up, another song about a December romance. Is this a vibe? No, it's not. It's not a vibe. It's a relationship with Taylor Lautner, who Swift dated for several months in the fall of 2009 and called it quits that December. He liked her more than she liked him. He went everywhere he could to see her, but she didn't travel much to see him. A source told US Weekly at the time they decided they were better as friends, and I'm going to leave this one here. There's really no, there's just these reports of people kind of describing their relationship and their dynamic being like this, where he liked her more than she liked him. And so this song in this context kind of makes sense. She says, I realized I loved you in the fall, which fits into the timeline of their relationship. But then she says, I'd go back to December, turn around and make it all right, which means that she felt she was kind of like in the wrong with that relationship. She also says, like, your tan skin, your sweet smile, and a lot of people took tan skin to just immediately mean Taylor Lautner. Next up is January, and first off, we have New Year's Day. I'll be cleaning up bottles with you on New Year's Day. And is New Year's Day really like that specific being used for a specific date here? No, of course it's not. It's being used as a vibe. What vibe? It's once again something very oddly specific, because Taylor likes metaphors. She says, I'll be cleaning up bottles with you on New Year's Day, right after she says that there's glitter on the floor after the party, girls carrying their shoes down in the lobby. And essentially what this whole song is saying is that she'll be there for the good time, she'll be there for the party, but also she'll be there for the bad time. She'll be like present in the cleanup of the whole party, and she'll always be with her partner. This is kind of confirmed when she says, I'll be there if you're the toast of the town, babe, or if you strike out and you're crawling home. Like, I'll be with you through the good or bad. This whole song is just about that. Next up, we have Lover, and is this lyric being used as a vibe? Yep. Yes, it is. What vibe? Yep, something oddly specific. I really should have made more categories, but it's okay. It's okay. We're here now. So we could leave the Christmas lights up till January. I recall Taylor saying this in an interview when she was playing Lover, maybe on NPR or somewhere, I don't know. But essentially, it's referencing kind of a completely ordinary thing, leaving the Christmas lights up till January. Like, it's not even that rebellious. It's like, it could have been March, but it's not. And I think Taylor spoke about this in the exact same way. She said that essentially she chose January on purpose, because it's really nothing out of the ordinary, but it's like, this is our place. We make the rules. We can do whatever we want. And it's just kind of this freedom in the little things. I don't know if that makes sense, but this was a very purposeful choice. She actually also says, I've loved you 3 summers now, honey, but I want them all. I just noticed that. But the song is about Joe, essentially, and the 3 summers that she loved him for. And those 3 summers are being used specifically for a relationship. Moving on to February. There's only one song that mentions February. Do we know what it is? Yes, we do. All my mornings are Mondays stuck in an endless February from Fortnite. And this is very obviously being used as a vibe. In this case, we're back to the kind of bad, cold, dreary vibe, because Mondays, first of all, ew, bad, but second of all, February. It's winter. It's a kind of the season, if you live in a cold place, where everything's like, the snow is kind of starting to melt, but not really. And it just doesn't really give good vibes. Now, moving on to the general springtime. First off, we have Ivy, in which Taylor says, spring breaks loose, the time is near. And I personally think that this song might actually be referencing a specific relationship, specifically dreaming about Maddie while she was with Joe, but that's just my interpretation. I don't know for sure, and it's okay if you disagree. I'm probably not right. But that being said, is this being used like for a vibe? Perhaps because of the reason I just mentioned, but most likely yes, because what is the purpose of using a specific theme here? Well, spring is generally referred to as the time where everything's kind of coming back to life. Everything has a new beginning. And if we look at the lyrics of the song, she says, I'd meet you where the spirit meets the bones in a faith-forgotten land. In from the snow, your touch brought forth an incandescent glow. So she begins the song when she's in the snow. She's in the winter, and she's basically saying that this winter is her current relationship. It is deceased. She says, I'll meet you where the spirit meets the bones. But then later in the song, she says, Clover blooms in the field, spring breaks loose, the time is near, essentially referring to this relationship sort of developing over time, and she's slowly coming out of this winter and into spring. There's like hope again, there's life again, which I think is a really fun metaphor, especially in the way that she does it with these lyrics. And then she asks, what would he do if he found us out, and or dare to sit and watch what will become and drink my husband's wine, essentially, instead of sitting with you. And so this song is clearly referencing an affair. And do I think Taylor did any kind of cheating herself? No, I don't think so, even though that's not for me to judge. However, I do think her songs are definitely inspired by situations where she does feel these feelings to an extent, and that's what I was talking about earlier. Finally, she says, my house of stone, your ivy grows. Yeah, the symbolism is getting out of hand in this song. By my house of stone, I think she's referencing this current relationship. Maybe her relationship with Joe, maybe not, but probably given that we got Stop, You're Losing Me, and kind of the vibes that gave off, is what I'm saying. And then she says, your ivy grows and now I'm covered in you, which is one that's, again, an allusion to spring and things growing, but also this person kind of just like taking over her life. Now, moving on to I Bet You Think About Me, where she says, you and I fell like an early spring snow. And while at first I thought this was once again kind of a reference to new beginnings, first of all, is this a vibe? Let's vibe check it. Yes, it is. It's for the vibe. But what vibe is it for? It's being used as a very specific metaphor, I think, in this scenario, where an early spring snow falls, but it like quickly melts. And after this lyric, she says, but reality crept in. You said we're too different. So by saying that you and I felt like an early spring snow, she's essentially saying like that the snow that this relationship really quickly dissolved, even though it might seem like it was spring and it was like really what I'm trying to say. Moving on to March. Taylor actually didn't write any songs with March in them, as far as I know. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but we're skipping that one. Next up is April, and I think everybody knows this reference. Taylor asks in High Infidelity, do you really want to know where I was April 29th? Is April 29th really for the vibe? It's not for the vibe. It's not for the vibe. But what relationship is it for? Well, there's multiple theories on this front. So the first theory is about Calvin Harris, because his song This Is What You Came For was released on April 29th, which Taylor actually was involved in writing and essentially agreed to ghostwrite for him. And then when they broke up, she was like, actually, I wrote that, which was kind of funny. And then on May 2nd, during the Met Gala, she met Tom Hiddleston, and this is them like cozying up at the Met Gala. So some people think this might be referencing this situation, but since the Met Gala actually happened on May 2nd, there's some doubt that remains there. There's also the theory that she met Joe Alwyn at the Met Gala, and that's what this is talking about, not Tom Hiddleston. But again, we have the problem of this Met Gala happening on May 2nd. What did happen on April 29th? Gigi Hadid's 21st birthday party. It was held a week after her birthday on that particular time. Here is literal evidence. And here is a deleted Reddit comment, which, as we all know, is the greatest kind of evidence one can have. So that says, I actually thought High Infidelity was about Joe. She actually met Joe at Gigi's birthday party on April 29th. And while we don't know for sure, I think that she definitely met somebody at this party. Either it was Tom Hiddleston or it was about Joe. And I think it was most likely more about Joe, because the song that everybody took for being about Joe, because she says, flashback when you met me, your buzz cut and my hair bleached. Everybody always uses the Met Gala photos as the reference for when they met. But if they had met just 3 days earlier, we really wouldn't know, because they'd have the same buzz cut and Taylor's hair would still be bleached just like it was at this birthday party. So that's my / this Reddit user's personal theory. I don't think it was talking about the Met Gala. I think it was talking about Gigi's birthday party. Moving on to May, we don't have anything for May. And then moving on to the general summertime, which Taylor also likes to mention a lot. And summertime is generally regarded as the happy season. But of course, Taylor makes life difficult for us and doesn't use summer as only kind of a metaphor for a happy period in a relationship. First off is Betty. She says, slept next to her, or actually, Betty is written from the perspective of a man. So he says, slept next to her, but I dreamt of you all summer long. And what's this being used for in this situation? It's being used for a vibe, because this literally didn't actually happen. There's theories about whose relationship this is written about, but this is definitely not written about Taylor's personal relationship, I don't think. I think summer here was definitely just being used for the vibe, kind of to signify the passage of time, but also to be able to say, would you trust me if I told you it was just a summer thing? This person had a casual summer fling, and that's why this kind of whole ordeal that's described in the song happened, and it was a very particular choice for this to be summer and not like, it'd be kind of weird if she said like slept next to her but I dreamt of you all winter long. All right, that's it. That's all I got. Next up is Forever Winter, where Taylor says, I'll be summer sun for you forever, forever winter if you go. And I think this is very obviously being used for the vibe, and this is actually being used for the standard vibe of summer. And it's being used for contrast as well, because she's comparing herself to being kind of this bright shining light for this person, but she's also saying that it'll be forever winter, she'll be forever sad if the person goes. And also she might be kind of saying that it'll be forever winter for him too if he goes, but based on the lyrics of the song where she says my voice comes out begging, I think she's the one that's mainly going to be sad. She also mentions summer in Fresh Out the Slammer, but we went over that already, so I'm going to skip forward. Next up, of course, Cruel Summer. She says it's a cruel summer with you, and this actually is not at all being used as a vibe. It's being used for the period of time in which she was kind of in a relationship, like she had a summer fling with Joe Alwyn essentially. And the problem with this was that, oh god, this is a lot of commentary. Okay, she was kind of in this fling with a bad boy, or not a bad boy, but a person who had a reputation with girls, and she started having feelings for this fling, and she was like, I don't want to tell him because it'll ruin it. So let's look at these lyrics. She says, fever dream high in the quiet of the night that I caught it. Like she caught this fever dream. Yeah, she got this fever, she wants him. Bad boy, shiny toy with a price that I bought it. This is essentially saying that he's kind of a player. Finally, she says, and it's new, the shape of your body, it's blue, the feeling I've got. If you've been following Taylor's songs about Joe Alwyn, she always kind of uses blue as the like metaphor for Joe, and she often uses it in songs with him. And I think that this happens actually a lot with her relationships, which is one of the reasons why we can kind of tell who songs are about, because she uses very specific adjectives for a few select people. It's not everybody, but I found that that's true for some. And yeah, she says it's a cruel summer, which essentially I think it was. They started, if you think about it, she met Joe in May of 2016. We just talked about it. She either met him at the Met Gala or Gigi Hadid's birthday party, and they started dating in September of 2016, which means essentially that there was this giant summer-long period of them kind of interacting but not dating. Because are you telling me, that she didn't see him until September and they randomly started dating? No, that's not what happened. She also says, you say that we'll just screw it up in these trying times, we're not trying. This, I believe, is referencing Taylor's reputation at the time, because right around summer, Kim Kardashian came out with the phone call that had Taylor Swift and Kanye on it, and Taylor said that essentially she gave Kanye permission for him to write something very crude about her in a song, which is like, it was a whole thing, and the internet turned against her because they believed she was making a whole scene, when in reality she actually approved the lyrics for the song. Of course, this was later disproved. Taylor didn't approve the lyric in Kanye's song, but anyway, that was all happening right around the summertime. And then apparently because of this, Joe says you'll say that we'll just screw it up in these trying times. So I think he was kind of afraid to enter a relationship with her because she kind of had this tarnished reputation, and she also kind of didn't want to pressure him into that probably. But then after she says we're not trying, which is like really like a fun play on words there, or like a really fun, it's not even a rhyme, I just think it's fun, because she says we're not actually trying, it's just a fling, it's not serious. Next, she says, so cut the headlights, summer's a knife, I'm always waiting for you just to cut to the bone. Devils roll the dice, angels roll their eyes, and if I bleed, you'll be the last to know. Essentially, she's always waiting for him to kind of like end the relationship or tell her he doesn't have feelings for her, and the devils are rolling their dice, and essentially she's taking this risk with him, just like risking her emotions when she knows that hers might be stronger than his, and she'll end up being heartbroken in the end. It's kind of like a roll of the dice, and the angels are obviously rolling their eyes at this. And the last lyric just references her not wanting to tell him he'll be the last to know. She also says, I'm drunk in the back of the car and I cried like a baby coming home from the bar, said I'm fine, but it wasn't true, I don't want to keep secrets just to keep you. the secret she's keeping is her feelings from him, but she's essentially not enjoying this cruel summer. And she says, I snuck in through the garden gate every night that summer just to seal my fate, essentially sneaking in, having this relationship in secret, but sealing her fate in the sense that she'll either end up heartbroken, probably, or it'll end up working out. And did it work out? We have these interesting lyrics in the middle of the song where she says, and I screamed, for whatever it's worth, I love you, ain't that the worst thing you ever heard, which is sometimes the situation you're in when it's a fling and you don't know if the other person has feelings. But then she says, he looks up, grinning like a devil. First of all, this line was funny because everyone, I think, heard something else when she was singing that. But if you think about it, he looks up grinning essentially means that he may have just known the whole time. And as we know, they did end up getting together in the end. So I think that kind of references a happy ending of sorts. It's curious that it's only one line and not like the end of the song being a happy ending. I think that's done purposefully. I think it's fun. Anyway, let's move on. We're going into June. We have one mention of June, and it's in You All Over Me, where she says, the best and worst day of June was the one that I met you. And I can't find a reason why this would be about a vibe, so the only choice we have is to assume that this is about a relationship. And a lot of people speculated about like who this might be about, but she wrote this when she was 16, okay? It's about none of the people that she has dated that were in the public eye. It was about that someone that she probably had a crush on or fell in love with at 16. We don't know. I'm not going to dive into her dating history there. I don't even know if it's public, but anyway, I think it's about a specific relationship that she had at this time. Next up, moving on to July, we have After the Storm, Something Was Born on the 4th of July in Endgame featuring Ed Sheeran. And this one is curious. 4th of July is not a vibe. I feel like 4th of July shouldn't be a date that's being used as a vibe. And so this must be about a relationship, but whose relationship is the question. This is about actually Ed Sheeran's relationship. And these are quotes from an interview with him. He said, you see, it's kind of a play on words. Ed Sheeran quipped after Swift noted the reference made her really happy. He added, there's a 1989 film with Tom Cruise called Born on the 4th of July, which I guess Taylor and Ed are fans of. And obviously, my relationship started on the 4th of July at Taylor's house. So Taylor was hosting this kind of like 4th of July party in her mansion, and Sheeran invited his former classmate Cherry Seaborn to join this party, and they eventually got married. So this one is actually a particular reference, but it's a reference to Ed Sheeran's relationship, which I think is really fun. Next up, we have Last Kiss, which says that July 9th, the beat of your heart. And once again, this has absolutely no reason to be a vibe. This is about a relationship, and most speculate that this is about her relationship with Joe Jonas. This song happens to have a 27-second introduction, which kind of happens to match the 7-second phone call over which Joe apparently broke up with her, and she actually mentioned this in an interview. There was also a secret note hidden in the lyrics at the time when it was released, which said Forever and Always, which is a song that's like not confirmed, but much more likely to be about Joe Jonas. Everyone thinks it's about him. And finally, I want to mention that they broke up in October of 2008. And while many people, for some reason, think that July 9th is referencing the date of the breakup, I don't think that's the case at all. And it doesn't make sense lyrically because she's saying that July 9th, the beat of your heart, it jumps through your shirt, I can still feel your arms. That means she's referencing kind of this happy memory that she had with this person back in July, but then they broke up in October. And in the lyrics, she's kind of caught off guard by this relationship ending. She says, I never thought we'd have a last kiss, never imagined we'd end like this, meaning that the relationship ending was kind of abrupt and she didn't see it coming, which matches the Joe Jonas theory. Next up, Taylor says in Sweet Nothing, I spy with my little tired eye, tiny as a firefly, a pebble that we picked up last July. And there is an immense amount of theories about what this might mean. I'm going to get the most preposterous one out of the way right away. Essentially, somebody on Reddit, it's always somebody on Reddit, they said that this pebble could actually be an engagement ring that Taylor picked out with Joe, or that Joe picked out and he just forgot in his pocket, which kind of would make sense because a pebble is a rock in a way, and a rock is kind of like a rock on a ring in a way. I don't think that this is what this lyric is actually referencing, but I do admit it is a fun theory because it's like down deep inside your pocket, we almost forgot it, which kind of references all of the themes of He Wouldn't Marry Me that are present in Tortured Poets Department in reference to Joe. And that would make more sense because maybe they forgot kind of about the excitement of a relationship, and now it's more about kind of the sweet nothings. This kind of first paragraph of lyrics in general seems really strange to me, and this might be kind of a reach, but I know that the song was written with Joe. But I think that maybe Taylor herself added this first paragraph into the song because it's the only paragraph that's really talking negatively. I mean, she says, "I spy with my little tired eye," which means that she's kind of tired of something. And maybe, of course, it's the smooth talking hucksters that she talks about on the outside. She's just talking about everything on the outside being so chaotic and coming home to her partner, and that partner just like humming in the kitchen, and her coming home just like a sweet nothing. But in the end, like, it's comforting. But in this first paragraph, she kind of says that she's spying with her tired eye, something that they picked up together like a long time ago and forgot about. So I think maybe Taylor went in and put this like paragraph as kind of a hint to Joe, maybe about an engagement ring, maybe about kind of like some of the magic of the relationship that was lost. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Point is, this is about a particular relationship, and I really do think that something happened in July. We have an Evermore mention again because she mentioned July. Seems like she mentioned the whole year in this song. Moving on to August, which we all know, of course. August from Folklore. She says, "August slipped away into a moment in time because it was never mine." And do we think something happened in August? Maybe, maybe not, but I think August here is primarily being used as a vibe. And what vibe is that? I think it's being used once again as kind of like a reference to a summer fling or like a summer honeymoon period with somebody that is not serious. And this is being used as opposed to like a winter fling. People always say summer fling. They don't say winter fling, and that's for a reason. This is kind of solidified by the fact that she says August slipped away into a moment in time because it was never mine, meaning that the relationship kind of was never hers to begin with, and she was kind of meeting up with this person for the hope of it all, saying meet me behind the mall, but in the end it had to end at the end of summer. Moving on to the general fall season, the last season. We're almost done. Maybe this video won't make it to an hour like all of my other ones. Yay. Moving on to Red. She says, "Like the colors in autumn, so bright just before they lose it on." This, I think, is very obviously being used as a vibe. More specifically, it's being used as a metaphor or simile. In this case, a simile, because she says like the colors in autumn. This is also kind of giving a vibe of something bad, like the fall leaves sort of transitioning and losing their color and going into the cold seasons. Once again, a reference there's a lot of references about Taylor songs that are set in the fall of going into winter and kind of like a depressing period. This is also kind of being used in the sense that the loss of leaves in the fall is often very sudden. Like there's all this brightness around you. It's also beautiful, but all the leaves fall in like the duration of a week or 2 weeks max, and then you've gone from this like really aesthetic fall vibe to just really bare trees. And I think this is also referencing kind of the abruptness of that transition. Because I don't think she saw that this relationship was ending, because she says losing him was blue like I'd never known, meaning that she lost him. So I don't think she really ended the relationship that the song is talking about. Next up, we have All Too Well. Once again, she mentions autumn in the song as well. She says autumn leaves falling down like pieces into place, and I can picture it after all these days. Once again, we've already discussed this. She dated Jake Gyllenhaal in autumn, or around that time. So this one is not being used for a vibe. This is a reference to a specific relationship. Next up, we have Marjorie, and I think this is, first of all, a really beautiful song, but also a very interesting lyric, because she says the autumn chill that wakes me up. And this, I think, is kind of referencing what is also said in the previous song, the colors of autumn, like so bright right before they lose it all. And there's this thing about autumn where it's switching into winter, and there's this sharp going into winter that is almost unexpected in a lot of situations. Like one minute it's fall and the next you feel this autumn chill coming in. And in the context of Marjorie, this is very obviously being used as a vibe, but I feel bad saying vibe so lightheartedly, because this is a song about her grandmother, and essentially I think she's using autumn chill in this situation as kind of being jarred by the fact that her grandmother is gone. Like she wakes up and she realizes that she's still, not here, she's gone, which is a really interesting metaphor to use. Next up, we have September, and of course we have Back to December again, which also mentions how you held me in your arms that September night, but we've already gone over the song, so I'm going to skip forward. Next, we have Tim McGraw, in which Taylor says, and I was right there beside him all summer long, and then the time we woke up to find that summer gone. And once again, summer here is being used as kind of like this fling, but I do actually have a quote that makes this less of a vibe and more about an actual relationship. This is Taylor literally talking about the specific song. It was with this guy I was dating, and he was about to go off to college, and I was thinking about all the things I knew would remind him of me. I didn't really think of Tim McGraw personally when I wrote the song. It was a song where I was listing personal things. One of the things that I listed was that my favorite song is by Tim McGraw. Swift added, the guy I wrote Tim McGraw about, I dated him for about a year, and we were still friends, but we don't talk that much because his new girlfriend isn't too much of a fan. He thought it was really cool that even though we weren't going out anymore, I remembered our relationship nicely. I think he was happy that I didn't write Picture to Burn about him, another song on my album, which I think first of all is really funny, but second of all confirms that this is actually like about a summer fling that Taylor had. And I think this relationship with whoever she dated and wrote to McGraw about, I think this might be her kind of inspiration for her songs that detail like high school summer flings, especially on Folklore and Evermore, because if you think about it, this was probably kind of the last summer fling Taylor got to experience, in the sense that like after this she was just working nonstop and didn't really have kind of a teenage summer. But this right here is on her debut album, so I think this is referencing a period in her life where she was in school and she was dating a college kid, and this was really like the high school summer fling. Finally, we have Innocent. She says, time turns flames into embers, you'll have new Septembers. Now, there's a couple theories to the song, so let me just go over them. This is a very specific this is a very weird mention of September, because why wouldn't she mention Januaries? You'll have new Januaries. I guess she could have picked any month, but this lyric is kind of to signify a passage of time and something new happening. And usually Taylor uses kind of like spring vibes to convey something new occurring, but here she uses September, which doesn't really make sense until you hear about the fact that Kanye interrupted her at the VMAs, first of all in September, but second of all he was also 32 at the time. And what does she say in the song? She mentions September, and she says, it's okay, life is a tough crowd, 32 and still growing up now. This whole song is essentially kind of making fun of somebody who she thinks hasn't matured enough and who's still kind of innocent, but the whole kind of mood of the song is really like taunting in a way, and a lot of people are like, no, this isn't about Kanye, but also she directly mentions his age and September, so who knows really, but that is what it's probably about. Next, October is blank. For some reason, Taylor didn't mention October. I find that strange because it's like the Halloween month. She's probably mentioned Halloween. Wait. Okay, I just checked, and to my knowledge, Taylor hasn't mentioned Halloween in a song. Maybe I'm just really bad at searching, but we're going to skip over that. Let me know in the comments if I'm wrong, like you always do. Moving on to November, we have November Flush and Your Flannel Cure in Champagne Problems. And this, I think, is... First of all, let's look at this quote from Genius, where it says that Swift noted in a YouTube live stream on the night of Evermore's release that she wanted the album to represent fall and winter, while Folklore represented spring and summer. Therefore, these autumnal references fit in with that theme, which I think, first of all, is a really fun quote to see after we've sort of gone over the Folklore summer and winter references and over the Evermore summer and winter references. I think that statement from Genius definitely matches up with what we've seen. But also, what vibe is this being used for? I think this is once again being used for contrast, because she obviously says November is kind of flushing her cheeks because it's cold, but your flannel cures me, you're keeping me warm, you're giving me all these happy feelings. However, the song is literally about her then saying no to this person, which is this is just a rough song, okay? But that's what I interpret this lyric to mean. We have Evermore again. Oh my god, okay. And next we have, I recall late November, holding my breath, slowly I said, you don't need to save me, in Call It What You Want. And this isn't being used for the vibe. It's being used for her relationship with Joe, once again, because Recall how I said Taylor started dating Joe in September, and how also that summer that Kim Kardashian phone call came out that resulted in her being canceled. And so this is kind of the period where Taylor, first of all, started dating Joe, and second of all, she went into hiding from literally everyone. And this really makes sense because she says, holding my breath slowly, I said, you don't need to save me, like you don't need to like try and block all these haters. But then she says, but would you run away with me? And that's essentially what they did. All Taylor did throughout 2017 was she camped out with Joe in her house, and they were alone and nobody saw her. Okay, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. This was kind of an impromptu one. I tried a new style as well, but yeah, thank you for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and remember that these are just theories, everybody. I am just the messenger here. I've once again spent too much time on Reddit. Okay, thanks, bye.